All right, what's going on, everybody? Hope this video finds you well. Super cool topic. One of my favorite topics to truthfully go over here is going into how do we transition the golf swing from a horizontal direction, rotation direction, and a vertical direction. How do we combine those three things into our golf swing to get the most out of it? So, if you haven't checked out the last video that I did, please click on that link down below. Also got a free crash course, Understanding Impact. Would love to have you take a peek at that. Let's go right into it. So, one of the big things that I think that we as players need to comprehend, and at least this is my viewpoint of the golf swing, not saying that other people's ways of teaching it do not work. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm not here to bash on other coaches, because there's a lot of great coaches out there, and there's a lot of coaches who have their own style and it works phenomenally. This is just my take on it, how I see it. Would love to get your feedback on it. So if we look at firstly what I would say from a rotation standpoint, I like to look at what can the spine do from a rotation standpoint. So if we measure actual torques of the spine, okay, so torque being rotation. So we have our lumbar spine area. I'm going to call that the pelvis area. We have our thoracic area, which would be our rib cage. Then we have our cervical, that would be our shoulders. So if we have a perfect spine, the lumbar spine right here can torque 5 degrees. Okay, so it can create 5 degrees of rotation. Very, very minimal. We have our thoracic spine that can torque 35 degrees, and then we have our cervical spine that can torque 55 degrees. Okay, and that again, that's just going rotation. So you can see as I rotate here, I can clearly move my shoulders and my rib cage more than what the pelvis has the ability to move, okay? Especially if it was stationary in the same position as if you're sitting in a chair or something like that. That would be stationary. So going into that, I don't see the ability to be able to create safely a lot of rotation from the pelvic area, okay? But now, that being said, we also have access to another form of this, is we would have external rotation. So this would be external rotation of the hip. Okay, so we have access to external rotation. Okay? Then we have access to horizontal movements, and we have access to vertical movements. Vertical movements being extension, feet, knees, hips, spine. Okay? We could say rotating the left side of the hip, the lead side of the hip, getting the femur to work around. That would be an external rotation of the pelvis that can help us create horizontal movement, a little bit of rotation movement. And then we have access to the feet. So when we look at this, I think to try and get everything that we can get out of the golf swing right here is we want to be able to combine three basic things: vertical movements, horizontal movements, and rotational movements. Okay? So when we look at this right here, one thing that I think can be a good option for players, they can start left, they can stay left, and they can work around this point. That's an option. We have players that start center to work around it, move a little left, turn around it there. We have players that move off of it, recenter, move around from there. All three are great options in my opinion. Okay? It's finding out which one works the best for you. So in the last video, I kind of talked about transfer of energy, so just footwork pressures. Okay, so this would be a little bit of a horizontal movement combined with a vertical movement. Today what we're going to do is we're going to combine that as well with the rotational movement. So how can we combine, because again, transition can be a fairly tricky area. Going from the top, I have to move horizontally, rotationally, and we have to move vertically, okay, if we're maximizing all of our force that we want to create. So one of the things that we kind of talked about is taking pressure out of this lead side. I still have the ability to maintain my center axis right here with pressure out of this. So this would be a weight transfer, which allows us to create verticals and horizontals. Now what we need to extend that with is external rotation of the femur, and basically setting a point right here that now our trail side has the ability to start to close. So one of the ways that I like to do this from a feel perspective, so we can combine de-weighting, horizontal movements, vertical movements, and also learning what it's like to externally rotate the hip via the way that we can use the feet right here. So what I've got right here is a visual reference. So this would be an old cup. So you can see my lead foot right here. This is elevated off of the ground right here, okay? So in my backswing, I'm not going to be putting a lot of pressure into this, okay? I'm also not going to be working off of it to where my foot would come off of it. So I'm going to start neutral right here at about 50-50, okay? As I get to my takeaway right in here and the club starts to work its way back around me, what I'm going to feel is I'm going to lose the pressure on this, step outside of it. So as I'm stepping outside of this, this is what's helping me get the pelvis back to neutral, that I can set my horizontal, my rotational, and my vertical point that this can push and extend from, and the trail side has the ability to drive into. So I think when we're learning complex, because this, I would say this is a complex movement. When we're learning complexities in movement like this, I think we need to have a way initially for us to start to learn how to feel it. So here's a way that we can do this right here. So if I'm right in here and I move the golf ball for 1 sec. So my first move, I'm going to start off doing this at a very light speed. Takeaway. So I'm de-weighted to where I'm off of this. Now when you're doing this though, maintain, my preference would be to maintain this center of access. So as I'm right in here and the arms and the shoulders are working around the spine, I'm losing pressure on this. And yes, in this drill, you're going to feel pressure in your lead heel, okay? And then as I get past my takeaway and I work up, I'm going to step this way. So you can see how stepping this way would be taking the pelvis back to neutral, setting my point that I would call a deceleration point. So if we look at that deceleration point, this would be like tetherball. So once I set this as a post right here, now from here, the arms and the trail side of the body have the ability to complete a circle or work around the arc around a constant point right there. Okay, so from here, I'm de-weighted, I'm going takeaway 50%, step, move through it. I'm going to go again, take away, I'm going to go at about 50%, take away, I lose the pressure on that, step to where my foot goes forward, I'm externally rotated, and then from there, everything works on an arc around that. Okay, so this gives us the ability to feel all three of these things, because as I'm stepping, that's a horizontal with external rotation with the ability to create a vertical push right there, okay? So one of the cooler ways that I've been able to come up with how we as players can feel this, and I think we need to have somewhat of a platform here. I'm not going to say to go out and take a cup out of an actual golf course. You could put a ball underneath your foot. I just have something that's a little bit higher so that I can demonstrate it a little bit better here for you. So as we're here, we'll give one of these a go. We're going to go at a shorter speed. So I'm going to go back, step, post, and hit. So I'm right in here, back, step, post, hit. So you can see how the arms have worked around me. Once I set this as a post right there, external with the knee and the femur, pressure is now forward, left hip's there. Now that gives me a runway for the trail side of my body to work around my spine right there and around this point that I've set. This would be the place that I would say to begin with. Start at slower speeds. Do it without a golf ball. I can't stress that enough. Learn what something feels like, video it, make sure it's moving the direction that you want. And again, one of the pieces that I would say is really important here is keeping the head here on center. So again, we give this a go. There's my feel. I'm de-weighted step with external rotation. So I'd be here. And that to me is an absolutely incredible feel. And what I like about this the most, and hopefully you'll see this as you try this at home here, is this really helps me to add an element of rhythm to a movement that is fairly complex. Those are some of the things that I would say for us as players makes this a little bit easier. Okay, so right in there, we're combining again de-weighting. We're combining forward pressure, which would be horizontals. We're combining horizontals, verticals, with enough rotation to get us back to square so that this point is here and our trail side can arc around us while we're maintaining a center axis. That is what I personally like to see out of the golf swing, how I would teach that footwork. Hopefully this makes sense to you. I would love to hear your feedback on it. If you guys have any questions whatsoever on this, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Leave those questions in the comments down below. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.